the new administration wants to start cushioning the effect of subsidy removal. And that one of them is by sharing 8,000 naira to 12 million households for the next 6 months, with $800 million palliative borrowed from the World Bank, approved by Nigeria Senate through President Bola Tinubu's request. Welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayo. Now we're staying on that $800 million loan. The Senate during the week approved President Bola Tinubu's request for $800 million borrowing from the World Bank. The President's request was in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, at plenary on Thursday. The President explained that the Federal Executive Council, led by former President Muhammadu Buhari, had approved an additional loan facility to the tune of $800 million to be secured from the World Bank to finance the Social Safety Net program. Now, attached with that particular request was a decision by the federal government to transfer the sum of 8,000 naira monthly to 12 million poor and low-income households for 6 months. He said the money would be transferred directly to identified beneficiary accounts. The spokesman for the president, Mr. Dele Alaki, said the government would distribute free grains and fertilizers to poor households and subsistence farmers, while large-scale farmers will get them for a discount as part of immediate measures to curb the impact of scrapping the subsidy. But questions many Nigerians are asking is, how will the federal government determine who is poor? How verifiable is the data for poor persons? And they are also hoping this will be another trade-off money by the former administration, which had no effect on the poverty ravaging the country. But let's look at this with an analyst. Joining me to talk about this is Johnson Chukwu. He is the CEO of Kari Asset Management. Thanks for joining us on Political Standpoint.
Thank you for having me. Good day.
So let me start from that question that many Nigerians are asking, which is how realistic is the 8,000 naira to 12 million households, and what impact will it have?
Okay, in fact, when you talk of how realistic it is and the impact 8,000 per household will have, we have to bear in mind that this is going to be going to the most vulnerable. So you are looking at people whose income is quite low. In as much as it's not going to be going to have an enduring impact, certainly for those the most vulnerable, it will be some relief. That's certainly not enduring, because if you look at the amount, you're saying 8,000 per month for a household of 5. In 6 months, they're going to be getting about 48,000 naira, and that means that each member of the household will be getting something like 9,600 naira a month for the 6 months. Which amounts to about 1,600 naira a month. So, in effect, what each individual is getting, if you're talking a household of 5, is that in a month they're getting 1,600 naira. So yes, if you look at it, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look quite impressive. But like I said, it's going to the most vulnerable. You're talking about people who have no income or no income, little income or no income. So, like they say, any little thing is better for nothing. Something is better than nothing. But clearly for me, the key direction that we should be focusing on is, how do we create an economy that is productive, that will allow everybody who is able-bodied, who is willing to work, to get a job. And that those people who are working are productive, not people who are rent seekers, not people who are just sitting there living on public treasury. People who really are sweating it out and creating value. That's the way a good economy works. So ultimately, what will happen is that if we have a productive economy, people with earn income, at periods like this, their relief will come from salary increment, because they are producing goods and services that are valuable. Then in terms of the integrity of the list of beneficiaries, I think what the federal government needs to do is make the list very transparent. Build a list that is built right from districts to local governments to states, and have that uploaded on the website that every Nigerian can log in and see. So that way, you can actually validate those lists by checking people that are listed around your neighborhood. Are they people you know? Are they really human beings? And are they really poor? And then, once you have that, the issue of whether how we're going to identify the poor people won't be a problem, because if you're going to build it from districts, so in that case you could actually say in each ward where are the most vulnerable forest people, let the ward leaders or the political leaders in that ward compile that list. Of course, it might be abused, but if it is open to the public, then
the network seems to be a bit shaky there, but I just want to confirm if we still have Mr. Johnson Chukwu. I think he has dropped off. Probably just take a break to allow him to reconnect. Hopefully, the network will be better when we return. Stay with us.
It's a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you. Watch anytime from anywhere on your mobile or smart devices. Download the TVC News app today. Available on Google Play and Apple Store.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teachers.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices were echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
In the month of July, on the 2nd of July, the global community celebrates World Sport Journalists Day. The 5th of July is the first anniversary of the Kuje prison attack when some Boko Haram insurgents escaped. The 7th of July marks 25 years since the winner of the June 12, 1993 presidential election, MK Abiola, died. His death occurred in 1998. 11th of July is World Population Day, while 15th is World Youth Skills Day. On the 17th, attention is turned to World Day for International Justice, while 18th of July is Nelson Mandela Day to honor the former South African leader. 25th of July is the World Diaspora Day, and on the 20th, the World Hepatitis Day is commemorated, as well as the World Nature Conservation Day. On the 29th of July, President Bola Tinubu will mark 2 months in office, and the 30th of July is World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Brace up and tune in to TVC News for in-depth analysis and reports. TVC News, first.
Thanks for staying with us on Standpoint. We are back with the CEO of Kauri Asset Management Limited, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, was speaking about the $800 million loan request from the president instead of before, from the previous administration, and now it's more of a carryover. And that's what we're talking about. And the items that have been listed, in terms of what this money is going to be used for. Mr. Johnson Chukwu was speaking as to the realistic nature of 8,000 naira for 12 million households every month. But I also want to ask you, when you look at that figure, I will know that this, we're saying the most vulnerable. But in terms of the figure that, we've seen being reported by international organizations as to 150 million people living under poverty line, 120 million, and the list is about 70 million. And then when you look at 12 million households as against that particular report or those figures, where does it stand?
Well, if you look at, depending on what parameter you're using to measure poverty, there is a figure from World Poverty Cloud that said about 93 million people are living in abject poverty. But remember, this intention is to touch 60 million people. So if you touch 60 million out of 93 million or thereabouts, of course, there's also a projection that another 7 million will go into poverty because of the increase in fuel price and the harmonization exchanges. So if you even take it that we going to have about 94 million people that are going to poverty and are in extreme poverty in the country, then a 60 million of them will affect about 2/3 of that population. Clearly, even the amount we are talking of will not assuage the impact of poverty on these people. Like I said earlier, you're talking about just about 1,600 naira a month per individual. As a measure of poverty is that your expenditure will not be less than $1.9 a day. $1.9 today, take it an average of $2 per day. In Nigeria, is $1 is about 750 naira. So $2 will be something like 1,500 naira. So in effect, what each individual will be getting in a month is what is required to be consumed by individual in a day to be considered not extremely poor. Which is why I say the impact is not going to be as huge, but anything is better than nothing. So other measure of poverty, which came from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, said about 1.3 million people are living in multi-dimensional poverty, that they lack access to good water system, good medical care, good educational system, and a multiplicity of parameters that we have mentioned. I'm not sure that is what we want to deal with when we're talking about palliatives for the most vulnerable. Clearly, this is targeted at the so-called 93 or 94 million people that have been classified by World Poverty Clock as extremely poor, and they require a minimum of $2 or $1.9 a day. But we are giving them just about $1.9 in a month. So that will tell you the contrast in terms of impact. But what matters to me is at this point that we must evolve an economic system that will be productive and will allow people to get gainfully employed and create value so that their income will be aligned with the performance of the economy. Because if you are productive and you are producing goods and services of quality, probably for export, for local consumption, when price levels change, which is the impact of this fuel subsidy removal, your employer is likely going to adjust your remuneration to be in tandem with the cost of living increase.
But what about the idea of interventions, other kind of interventions that could complement this particular move? Because some people are saying, look, what if after 6 months, what next? Are you going to continue, which might not be sustainable? So what other interventions could accompany this particular palliative to ensure that, look, it is some sort of complementary, and then it could, if you stop giving the 8,000 naira, there are other things that they could fall back on.
Okay, let me take us back to some of the measures they were supposed to have been put in place before the removal of subsidy. The removal of subsidy was supposed to have happened sometime last year, not now. I think January last year or December 2 years ago. But the current president, or December last year, the president decided in his wisdom, the immediate past president, to extend it against the dictates of the Petroleum Industry Act. Some of the things they had actually planned to put in place was that they're going to buy buses, which are gas-fueled or gas-driven buses, and they will provide at least 20 buses per state. So they had planned to bring in about 1,000 buses, provide 20 per state, which is about 720 buses, and that make sure that the state capitals had enough of these buses, that each state will have a minimum of 20. And then states, based on their population density, some states may have more, like Lagos, maybe Port Harcourt, and what have you. They may have more of those buses. That was supposed to apply routes that we are largely inhabited by the most vulnerable in the society. Places like in Lagos, places like Ajegunle, Agege, and all those routes. So that impact of that would have been that the cost of transportation to and from work would have remained largely the same for this set of people. One of the reasons why England seems to be a desirable place for most people to go and live in is because they have one of the most efficient public transport systems. So part of the measures that can be put in place going forward is to improve the public transport system and to some extent use it as an insulator to the public when it comes to the most vulnerable, when it comes to the cost of transportation. And cost of transportation is a very critical cost when it comes to household expenditure in the country. So that's one aspect that should have been done and can still be done. The other thing is that they were supposed to provide CNG, compressed natural gas, so that each state will have access to this compressed natural gas, and they were making efforts to convert vehicles from gasoline-driven to gas-driven. And I think we can still do those things. If, for example, you begin to convert public transport vehicles or passenger vehicles to gas-driven source of energy, you will end up reducing the consumption of fuel and reduce the impact of the price adjustment we are witnessing on fuel prices. Remember that we are not seeing the end of it. Today, Brent is doing more than $81 per barrel. So the implication and subsequent importation of fuel will land at a cost that is higher than the current pump price. And so we should expect that there will be further adjustment in pump prices. But if we adopt these two measures I mentioned, improve public transport system, provide public transport vehicles like we have in other countries in the world, since we don't have the rail system, and ensure that vehicles have easy access to converting from fuel to gas driven.
And management and monitoring will become another issue, because I don't know how well, apart from Lagos State, those other state governors and governments have done in terms of managing a public transport system. Some have tried and failed, so we'll see how they manage this particular one if it is done. But I wanted to ask you about one other things, or one other item on that list that Nigerians have been talking about, and that's the 70 billion earmarked for the National Assembly, those new lawmakers, for to create a conducive work atmosphere for them. And people are wondering how for a system that right now we're saying we don't have enough money. Why should we have 70 billion now for the National Assembly? I want you to speak on that, because the mathematics for a lot of people is some people have left, some people are coming in, new people are coming in. So if there are work items or work tools they have used, they should be handed over. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, my take is that it depends on the priorities of the government. The comfort of the political class has always been a priority in the Nigerian system. So it's all about what is the priority of the leadership in terms of resource allocation. Clearly, by allocating more than 20% of the amount that we disbursed as palliative to those in political offices, particularly elected National Assembly members. Remember, they are just about 460 of them, or 470 of them that are elected in the National Assembly. You have 360 members in the House of Representatives and about 109. So if you add the two of them up, you're going to have something like 469 members of the National Assembly. They'll be getting 70 billion, whereas the population of 60 million people will get 500 million. So if you do that arithmetic, then they are getting more than 15% of what the rest of the world is getting, or the rest of the poor is getting. So the key question is that the priorities of the government, who are the priorities in terms of resource allocation? We've always cried ourselves hawks on the fact that the National Assembly members or the political class are getting disproportionate share of the national resources compared to what the masses are going through. Like I did mention the issue of buses. I'm sure with 70 billion naira, you get those buses for about the more than 1,000 buses that I referred to, and that will be a lot of relief. And if you have that relief, even National Assembly members will be more comfortable moving around. And I don't think the expenditure they are talking about, buying computers, furnishing their offices, requires that volume of disbursement, a volume of support or cash. I think, but for me, the key thing we must be in mind that this is the priority of the government. It's the priority of the leadership of the country, and they are allocating resources to those they think are more important to them. And that's the only way you can explain that.
But if we were to stimulate our economy, what should we let go and what should we be doing?
Well, if we stimulate the economy, the key thing for me is that the resources of the state should be invested in some critical sectors of the economy. Some of the heavy lifting have been done, removing subsidy, harmonizing the exchange rate. We need to address the issue of insecurity. It is very critical because I can tell you that the agricultural sector employs more than a quarter of the Nigerian population. If the farmers can go to the farms to some extent, will be insulated from the poverty impact of fuel subsidy removal. If they can produce and they have enough food production in the country, price of food will come down, food inflation will come down from about 24% today, and if that happens, it will take off part of the pressure Nigerians are going to go through as a result of increased inflation. Second aspect is that the government needs to focus on infrastructural development. Transport infrastructure is very key. Road infrastructure. If we need the logistics infrastructure, the seaports, we need to make the economy an attractive economy for productive activities. We need to improve power supply, particularly transmission grid, which is at the purview of the federal government because the federal government still controls the transmission grid. We need to do that so that we can wheel out the power that generated and make sure that we have stable power supply in the country. If we are going to have that, you will gradually make the country more productive. The ultimate objective of the government should be to make Nigeria a productive economy so that people can be gainfully employed. And then before we look at other issues that about the quality of education, the quality of skills that require from the educational system, that will make them to be as productive as people elsewhere in the world. So for me, the government must invest in key priorities, infrastructure, security, and you can't go wrong with those things. Those are part of the pressures that are holding the economy down from being productive.
And some people are saying, look, we need to cut the cost of governance. But what impact will that make? And how much can we really save if we're going to cut the cost of governance?
Well, you did ask me earlier about the 70 billion of going to National Assembly, but that's part of the cost of governance. I think beyond the National Assembly member, there's also vehement allocations to the judiciary and other arms of government. So those are the parts of the issue about governance. The other aspect is the multiplicity of ministries and departments. In as much as I agree that we need to whittle down and harmonize the functions of these ministries and departments, I don't really, if I take a look at what has happened in the past couple of years, I don't think that's our greatest problem. The greatest problem is that we are misallocating resources to non-critical sectors of the economy or sectors that are not relevant to economic growth. There's not much you can get from harmonizing the ministries and departments. There will be some savings, but that's not the problem. The problem is that the National Assembly, you don't need to harmonize or use them to a unicameral National Assembly from a bicameral National Assembly to avoid the 70 billion that is going to them. The 70 billion is an intentional allocation. And I'm sure that without it, they would have still survived. I guess that they have enough allocation for each of the members of the National Assembly to take care of their offices. Remember that under Obasanjo's government, we had eliminated some of the perks of offices in terms of benefits in kind, like buying vehicles, putting them in houses. But today, we have gone full cycle, gone back to those areas. I saw that there are some members of the National Assembly will be getting bulletproof vehicles, and then they are going to, some of them are going to stay in government accommodations. These are things that should have been fully monetized, and that way, people will now determine whether that's the best way to spend their money. And I think we need to go back to that. We have rules that say, look, we are monetizing all benefits of public officials, but we are going full cycle and say, look, some people at certain levels will continue to enjoy the perks of offices, and you really can't put your hands on the money.
Perhaps, a good place to start. Nigerians just want food on the table. This government has said it is ready to put food on the table. We'll see the steps they will take in the coming days. Thank you so much for talking to us, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Kari Asset Management Limited.
My pleasure.
We're watching Start. Let's take a break. When we return, we'll have another burning issue on the table. Stay with us.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Honey, what time did this happen? We'll be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
The National Assembly is a busy place. As the bastion of democracy, it is a place where bills are presented, motions debated, laws made, and the yearnings of the people are laid bare. Come with us as we take you through the workings of the National Assembly. We take you through plenary, committee meetings, and probes, all to ensure smooth working of the democratic process.
The TVC News at 7 and the TVC News at 10 are not like any other news broadcast.
It's the big news hour, the hour for the big breaking stories.
We've got some of the best reporters on the field,
Taking you through as it happened.
it's fast-paced, hard-hitting,
With investigations that matter.
bringing in news that affects your life.
With sports, entertainment, and business news, so you don't miss a thing.
Experience resourceful coverage with depth.
Every night.
It's not a regular show. It's an online interactive session where we share my views on the everyday issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. I am passionate about our country. I choose to support any conversation geared towards building a better Nigeria. Babajide Kolaji Otitoju. Join me every Saturday on TVC News YouTube channel as I discuss Nigeria and the world at large on the show Issues with Jide.
What is better than your view on weekdays? Your view on the weekend. Something special, something more. We have an extra dose of premium television experience. Your Saturday is about to get upgraded with more engagement, information, and special moments.
Let me speak pidgin. English is a problem. Don't see your parents finish. Yes. I don't know another English. Do you want to know? Finish.
Join us from Saturday, the 15th of April, 2023 at 9 a.m. for the weekend edition of Your View. Join the intelligent, dynamic, inspiring, and fearless ladies of Your View as they have the difficult conversation,
the thuggery and intimidation,
breaking down barriers and defining the narrative. Save the date as we count down to the weekend edition of the most exciting talk show on Nigerian television.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Honorable Minister, the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
There is always more to a story than the scripted line. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Never miss a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you. Watch anytime from anywhere on your mobile or smart devices. Download the TVC News app today. Available on Google Play and Apple Store.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Standpoint. Let's turn attention now to the Southeast, which for over some years now has been in turmoil, almost in a state of anarchy. sit-at-home initiated by IPOB to protest the detention of the leader, Nnamdi Kanu, have been hijacked by hoodlums, including those IPOB created themselves, and that's due to division in their leadership. Blood has been flowing freely in all parts of the region. Hundreds of lives have been lost and property worth billions of naira destroyed. Academic activities, disrupted. Indeed, the region became a ghost of itself while the leaders watched doing little. Now, should this carnage continue, there is urgent need to recover the Southeast and bring back peace and harmony to the zone. What is the way forward? What needs to be done? These are the questions now being asked. Questions the Southeast governors and stakeholders are also finding answers to with their recent meetings and to meet President Tinubu for a way forward. Joining me to talk about this is a security expert, Yekachi Adekoya. He joins me in the studio. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
We're also joined via Zoom by the former NEC chairman, Sam Amadi. Good to have you join us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let me begin with you, Mr. Sam Amadi, because we seem to be seeing a renewed zeal, coming from the Southeast leaders to curb the sit-at-home order. Why are we seeing this now?
Well, first, I think because of two factors. One is that the sit-at-home before now kind of normalized into a low energy activity. I think the Southeast on several Mondays, and particularly for example, people move around but don't like to travel out of state. So it was really dropped in terms of intensity because IPOB says, no, we don't support it. So in the past, it has been low energy, low key. People just be cautious and maybe once in a while some incident. But recently, we have seen what looked like escalation with last 2-3 weeks. We had the incidents in Edo State where some people, criminals hooded and armed, went around terrorizing people. We've seen also incidents in some part of Anambra recently. So I think that escalation, change of mode, brought about this new leadership forum to look for solution. Again, the new order issued from Finland by a really great, basically distributed city of Aleppo is also of concern, where there seem to be some kind of instructions to criminals and persons themselves who are victims of terror themselves to unleash, to go about to enforce several days of sit at home. So I think these two events combined, maybe to raise the leadership, put a red light, and then the Southeast leaders seem to be more concerned than probably they were a few weeks ago, when to normalize to basic, maybe low level, no interest, not much interested movement. But people were actually moving around in the Southeast on those Mondays and being involved in some activities. Even the banks and institutions were cautious and shut down in some places.
Let me bring the conversation to Mr. Yekachi Adekoya, because this has been going on for years. It didn't start today. We've seen buildings burnt, military formations attacked, INEC offices burnt. We've seen people being kidnapped, personal residence and property destroyed. And so people are saying, look, perhaps too much time has passed to be able to nip this in the bud quickly. And so one is wondering, what will it take? The Southeast leaders have their own mechanism for dealing with this, the net, and they think that some things will work. But I'm asking you as a security expert, what will it take?
Well, I think the horse has bolted out of the stable, so I'm not sure what the Southeast leaders are expecting at this time. I would think that this issue was treated with kid's glove a bit. Of course, you must understand the Biafran sentiments, where people, there are people who genuinely feel that the Igbo ethnic group have been marginalized within the construct called Nigeria. So to some extent, these people have enjoyed some patronage. It's more or less like the Boko Haram thing. It's good to see now that we are speaking up a bit more and being a bit more active. What people didn't really know about Boko Haram was that it was largely a Kanuri problem. Once you had Al-Bawani bring in foreigners from outside and they killed Shekarau, it stopped being a Kanuri problem. As of today, you hear little about Boko Haram because over 80,000 Kanuri Boko Haram people have, left the forest for the foreigners. So I think that the way to deal with it is really a political thing. There has to be that resolve from the people themselves to define exactly what it is that they want and what will work for them. Because we've created a monster in the southeast. It's a hydra-headed problem. Amongst these people are armed criminal groups, cultists, lone wolves, there are rogue operators. Kinetic force alone will not stop it. And going to Abuja to have meetings also is good. Maybe politically they want to call the attention or get the attention of the president. That's what they're having meetings.
Because that also was one of the issues raised. Yes. Why would you leave the Southeast to Abuja? And
I've been wondering
they're
also.
Trying to get the attention of the National Assembly, on that meeting. But, that's on the side. I want to ask you if you think that it will take dialogue or it will take, because of the elements who have not hijacked that particular movement, will it take dialogue or will it take, stringent security measures?
You have to now go in all out. It has to be a carrot and a stick approach. But kinetic force alone will not work. But where the problem is like a man who has a cancer. There's a cancer now in the southeast. If you don't operate on the cancer, the victim will die. If you operate carefully, you may cause some damage. So the south is now between the devil and the deep blue sea. You have an entrenched sentiment that you must first deal with. And I'm saying that until the people of the southeast themselves have not seen enough from the southeast to think that they are really serious about, because some people now enjoy the sit at home on Sundays, on Mondays, because Sundays are now for clubbing in French. So people have lived their life around it, Injustice somewhere is injustice almost everywhere. So you've allowed this, we've shifted because you think there's a cause. Now, let me ask the critical question. If Biafra is instituted today, where will be the capital of Biafra? I'm just asking. Is it the Abia man that will give way for the Anambra man or the Owerri man that will give way for the Ngwa man or the Ebonyis who feel like they're not even from the southeast or the ones in Mobibo? So where would Biafra actually take people to? So there are a lot of questions that have not been answered. Until you find those answers to those questions, you cannot, without care, bring in kinetic force. So there's a lot that your Ahaneze needs to do. There's a lot that the local chiefs need to do. There's a lot of sitting under governors need to do. There's a lot the people themselves must sit down and, agree.
Let me allow Mr. Samambadi answer some of these questions because, the Southeast right now is talking about just the sit-at-home order, and that's because it has had a lot of impact on the economy of that region. But people are wondering, that's dealing with a symptom of the disease itself, that the major issue here are the agitations, the secessionist agitations. And that once you say, sit at home, does that stop the agitations?
Question. Again, let me start by clearing confusion. I was a lawyer with Chief Benefit when OPC started in Lagos. I practiced. I was known to Philip Fashion and others who are involved. Look, there are three different things. The Biafran, I'm sure you can say it very well. The Biafran question is not foreclosed. It's like a nostalgia. When the state malfunction, people remember Biafran. Biafran wonderful. That's a mental construct. That's one hand. There are people who are still energizing Biafra, utilizing Biafra. That is not what is causing the violence. Two, there is the IPOB and all the various groups who are fighting for referendum and all that. We saw that with other Southwest, Middle Belt, North, South groups. But there was a moment that this became a problem, and that's what is very important. Three factors driven. One, the use of military and legal solutions for a political cause. The arrest and detention of Nnamdi Kanu, good enough. None of the lawyers, none of the people, Southwest, Southeast, Northern, people say, this is a wrong strategy. This is going to make a hero out of somebody. Now, Just like you put people in detention, you don't have a credible criminal charge against them. You politicize the legal process. There are many people who have no intellectual skill and no concern about IPOB and all that they're doing. In fact, the entire crisis, more of saying we don't believe in this nonsense. There are many. I was in a meeting with Subsidy today, and he was talking about carrying his Nigerianness. There are people who don't believe in separation. But also people who, because of the failure of the Nigerian state and the governors of the Southeast region, carry this nostalgia. You saw me totally dehumanize again, embargo the militarization of the Southeast. If you go to the Southeast and see very provoking military presence, these people are radicalized. The third issue is look at the incidence of violence. Again, let's forget it is sit at home does not correlate to violent killing. If you look at the latest report, Southeast has the lowest number of deaths by violence. So it's looking at the deaths. There are more killings, North Central by far, in Northeast and Northwest than ever in Southeast. The problem with the Southeast issue is that we have seen the government become weak and non-state actors become powerful, so that people now pay more respect to a so-called IPOB sit at home than a governor. Again, when we are having the same so-called Fulani killings and order, the Northwest governors responded with amount of, forget whether it's efficient, whether it's a gimmick, but it served a responsibility function. People felt, oh, there was such demand for Southeast leaders to set up their original. Governor Umaye and Hope Zaduma and others frustrated it. That was the genesis of the so-called ESM. Many of us oppose it because you can't solve a government failure with private production. So that moment, where some people recruited young people and helped us to protect the forest and turn them into victims themselves, drug, criminality, so voodoo, and all kinds of things, is what created this crisis. If there had been responsive governance at the regional level to deal with a menace and a clamor in a responsible way, you would have known the so-called ESM that people are now using as a brand for all kinds of terror. We heard Alfredo Kubo talk about some of the work they are doing with the so-called embargo. So you need to sort out, the government need to sort out. First, the issue of Biafra, we can reach it away. It might not come to pass again. It might be what we call economic Biafra, sentimental Biafra. But essentially, if you do a referendum today, you might be surprised that not many people want to leave Nigeria as bad as it is. The second issue look at is the so-called IPOB and other Biafra movement, the right of self-defense, the self-referendum, self-expression. How violent is this? And the third is the criminal use of violence, not by a state or non-state actor, and that's the point about criminality. So if we put them all together, we find a solution. We can't deal with whether people love Biafra or not. It will take time. When Nigeria works equity for everybody, people will now begin to say, oh, Biafra was once, like actually said there was a country. But as long as many Nigerians feel dissatisfied with the country, you will see all kinds of control movement. I know where it was in OPC, Sankara, all of them. It was idealism. But the key thing here is if the state works for all, that idealism will be utilized and will come back to embrace.
Mr. Amadi, let me put you on hold. I want Mr. Oyekachi to respond to what you just said, because you mentioned earlier about the issue of military operation in the Southeast. I think it was, there was Operation Python Dance 1, 2, and 3, which was, popularly called Exercise Equity. And many thought that probably also complicated, the situation there, and that the Southeast was looking more like a war front. I want you to get your reaction to the impact that the military operations in that region had on what we're seeing today.
Now, it's not easy when you send in combatant troops against citizens of a state. Let me just use a quote. Any popular uprising would always outlast any occupying force. So to the extent that the Nigerian army personnel were seen as an occupying force in a hot area, it made them a bit more hostile and pensive. because we can. I'm excited now. There's sentiment now to say this monster, we need to deal with it. There was a time that 2 IGPs issued a statement and say that no squadron should send police to the southeast. That was the height of the time when police were being killed on a daily basis. Their rifles snatched from them. The military personnel were being killed. So if you set up a checkpoint in the southeast, in what you call a hostile environment, your posture will be different from when you feel like you're in a friendly environment. So if you hear some of those complain about the posture, the body language of the military personnel stationed in some of those places, it's because they also fear for their lives. We forget that these people are human beings also. Nobody is trained to go and die. You know, you train them to kill, not to be killed. So they also have to defend themselves. And that's not to make any excuse for some of the reports we get from the high-handedness, but it's also a two-edged sword. Now, to the issue he raised about governance, the state, if the state is not working for you, with very profound respect, the Southeast have one of the worst sets of governors anywhere in this country. I'm happily from the Southeast. Abia State is my mother's hometown, where the governor has been owing salaries for months. The roads are bad. The place, people just go to the market. They don't care about governance. They're not interested who is in the state capital in Umuahia, for example, in Aba or Area market. So the people in the Southeast have a strong disconnect from themselves and the government. So
you're talking about the former governor of Abia State.
The former governor of Abia State. No, so this new one has tried and he's clearing things up. So you see, the number of, that's why I said, you can't just go all in kinetic. The people themselves must clearly define what it is they want. Now, let me make this point on governance. We talk about the incidence of poverty being very high in the north. The disconnect, the social disconnect between the governed and the governor, the governed and the governors in the southeast is very high because people naturally don't reckon with government. People are very industrious. They want to get things done themselves. They don't, what's government? Who is government? You know, so what government does and how government does what it does is not, people are not very participatory in government. They stand a bit aloof. So that's why you see that if you say that the polity is not holding the governors to account, it comes from the people. So the Southeast political class almost have a free reign, almost like you used to have in the North, which, I mean, thank God for beavers. You are now beginning to hold people to account. You can see what happened in Abia State. And beavers did work. So I think once the political system matures a bit more, we will see the closing of a gap. So if you say the state is not working, the state is not working, but there are a lot of people in the north, there are a lot of people in Russia, there are a lot of people in Abuja, in Lagos, doing business because those states are working. So can the governors of the Southeast make the Southeast to work for the benefit of the people?
Because, you know, a lot has been said about how part of this is also, you know, issues around unemployment. But let me bring this Damadi in. I want to get to the request, you know, which is now the main request we're hearing from, you know, Southeast leaders. And everyone seems to be talking about how Nnamdi Kanu should be released, you know, as the panacea to some of these challenges in the Southeast. And, you know, for people who have been watching, they're wondering if this request is granted today, even though it still is a court case. I don't know how the government is going to respond to it. But if it's granted today, what is the guarantee that all that is going on now in the Southeast will automatically stop?
Okay, very good question. I don't think it's going to change everything overnight, but it does one thing. It removes legitimacy around the seat at home. Now, let's look, the history is important. Like our brother, the guest on the studio mentioned. If you watch the timeline, before Edibago, there are no incidents of police being killed in Southeast, and the records are there. We had the incidents of mass rallies, Nnamdi Kanu and his people massing around until the so-called Edibago, and then the attack at Afarago, which is Nnamdi Kanu's place, which led to disappearance, don't know how it happened, and he's killed. So the killing of police officers is a terrible thing. If I was a governor, I wouldn't allow anybody to kill any officer because that is a challenge to the integrity of the state. That incident came afterwards, after the transition, and the wrong-headed approach. Again, You talk about leadership failure, and I agree with you to that. Now, if you're reasoning the county, you take out a justification for sit-at-home. The sit-at-home, apart from Biafra Memorial Day, the sit-at-home started as every day in the county is to go to court to sit at home. And then even when IPOB officially disowned it, erratic. That's the point. You see, that's why you should be careful with all these violent actions. Once it starts an unregulated movement and creates a militia, which I oppose, and still oppose, nobody should be allowed to have a private militia in the country. Because once you do that, it becomes difficult to control. It becomes worse than the terrible government. So some rubbish persons who have access to arms, and today we're talking about the provision of arms across the country, where it's easy for anybody. Look at the number of kidnaps and killings on the highways across the country. That tells you that arm is available everywhere. So 2, 3, 4 people give them arms, and from Finland, it's a go and attack, and the attack, opportunistic attack. That's not that there's a collapse of rule of law. So if you look at the Kanu, and by the way, that's a good question, the legal process. The court has said that its detention is illegal. So what the government need to do is to obey that court order. Now, if you have a criminal charge, I've spoken with a judge who handled the case. These cases are just political. You know, it's okay, but now take it off. Then, define clearly the parameter. Anybody who kills anybody, if any guys, should be hunted down and prosecuted. But look at the problem.
What about the previous attacks? Because it's almost as though, just a minute, Mr. Ahmad, it's almost as though people are saying, just a minute, Mr. Ahmad, because it's almost as though people are saying, look, let's start all over again. Because if there have been attacks, people have been killed, and critical infrastructure have been destroyed. So who takes responsibility for all of that?
In fact, if I was Attorney General, we are going to go back to all the attacks. Anybody who killed anybody, a Nigerian person, police officer, citizen should be prosecuted. There's no amnesty for criminal killing. But look at it this way. Now, I'm a lawyer. I have read through the charge. The charge should connect. You don't criminalize political dissent. Everybody has a right to fight for a dual republic, Biafra republic, or Arab republic. It's a joke. In the U.S., there are groups who are fighting for Texas to be excised from the U.S. It's political speech. If you have credible evidence, this is 3-4 years of trial, not moved anywhere. I can tell as a lawyer, I do the charge, those charges have never convicted anybody. There's no association between Nnamdi Kanu or anybody with killing anybody. But there's a crisis created by your rhetoric. It's the equivalent of Trump being prosecuted for a speech. The point I'm making is this. I'm not asking for
the comments in May that were video evidence in that regard. But I want to remember we never have enough time. I know we never have enough time to discuss this issue, but I just want Mr. Adekoya to, because I saw him making some, he had some body language, to what he was saying. I just want to respond to what Mr. Amadi was saying, and then this general call for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Just a minute, because we have barely a minute left.
Yeah, so the matter of Nnamdi Kanu is in court, and like he rightly said, we need to find build a golden gate somehow to find a solution. But we must set aside the Uzombu politics. You can't take action against the state and then also be threatening the state. I'm sure that the political class will find a way to resolve some of these issues. I just wanted to make a point to say that Nnamdi Kanu's problem did not start with the federal government. It started with the southeastern governors and the political class. He referenced the time when they were making peaceful protests. There was a time when Nnamdi Kanu had the clout to determine who will become governor in most of the southeastern states. That was about the time that the political class moved to proscribe IPOB and then led the problem into a dangerous escalation, just to make the point that the problem IPOB has is not necessarily with the Nigerian state, but the crop of politicians you have in the southeast. So let's just take this matter back. So the people who help organize this problem are the ones that will help us solve the problem. So let's see that sincerity from that side first, and let the federal government provide.
I just wish we can go on with this conversation because a lot of questions have not been answered. But I must thank both of you for your time. The former NEP chairman, Mr. Sam Amadi, as well as security expert I know you have two regions of the country. Thank you both for talking to us. I will see how the federal government responds to this particular issue. That's Standpoint today. Remember, you can watch a repeat broadcast at 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayo.
In the month of July, on the 2nd of July, the global community celebrates World Sport Journalists Day. The 5th of July is the first anniversary of the Kuje prison attack when some Boko Haram insurgents escaped. The 7th of July marks 25 years since the winner of the June 12, 1993 presidential election, MK Abiola, died. His death occurred in 1998. 11th of July is World Population Day, while 15th is World Youth Skills Day. On the 17th, attention is turned to World Day for International Justice, while 18th of July is Nelson Mandela Day to honor the former South African leader. 25th of July is the World Diaspora Day, and on the 20th, the World Hepatitis Day is commemorated, as well as the World Nature Conservation Day. On the 29th of July, President Bola Tinubu will mark 2 months in office. And the 30th of July is World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Brace up and tune in to TVC News for in-depth analysis and reports. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Every major news story is with many perspective and layered with different levels of impact.
Honey, what time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV station of the year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
The National Assembly is a busy place. As the bastion of democracy, it is a place where bills are presented, motions debated, laws made, and the yearnings of the people are laid bare. Come with us as we take you through the workings of the National Assembly. We take you through plenary, committee meetings, and probes, all to ensure smooth working of the democratic process.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Well, thanks for joining us on World Now. Let's begin from South Korea, where 21 people have been killed by torrential rain and thousands evacuated from their homes due to the rains that caused landslides and flash floods. According to a local news agency, 10 persons are missing and 9 injured. 16 of the deaths recorded were in a northern province, which sits along the eastern portion of the Korean peninsula. Most there were killed by landslides. About 8,300 households in 4 provinces are experiencing power outages. The United States National Weather Service says around 27 million people are forecast to experience extreme hot temperatures in the coming days. The nation reportedly has an estimate of about 700 deaths each year from heat-related causes. This pressure from heat waves is coming at the same time Europe is experiencing the same weather condition. There is more in this report.
In the United States, a strong heat wave is forecast to intensify this weekend, with warnings issued across the Southwest. Heat advisories issued Friday night affected at least 113 million Americans from Florida, Texas to California, up to the northwestern state of Washington. The use of air conditioners in Texas has topped the state's previous record for power consumption as people try to keep cool from intense heat. Around 27 million people are forecast to experience temperatures over 43 degrees Celsius in the coming days. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 700 people are estimated to die each year from heat-related causes in the United States. The U.S. National Weather Service says the heat is as a result of an upper-level ridge of high pressure, which typically brings with it warmer temperatures.
Let's talk with the continuation of extreme heat waves in southern Europe. Red alerts have been issued in 16 cities across Italy. The alerts for the coming days, which indicate risks even for healthy people, apply to tourist hotspots, including Rome, Florence, and Bologna. More high temperatures are expected in Europe next week as another heat wave approaches. The European Space Agency says Italy, Spain, France, Germany, and Poland may see extreme conditions. Periods of intense heat occur within natural weather patterns, but globally they are becoming more intense, lasting longer due to global warming. Let's bring you updates on the Russian-Ukraine crisis. The Russian President Vladimir Putin